This week I challenged myself to see how quickly I could build an entire garden room. Now, if you're not exactly sure what a garden room is, it's basically a really posh way of saying a shed, and you can use it for a number of things. And for me, I'm going to be using it as an office and a workshop. And then the space that's in front of this building is going to eventually be a garage for 2 cars, and everything's kind of leading to that moment. So some of the works that you're seeing in this video, if it looks a bit odd, it will make a lot more sense later on. Now, the first order that I needed to make was for all of the timber. So this is for the foundation frame, the floor joists, the stud walls, the rafters, the everything, the OSB, the plywood for the floor, the plywood for the ceiling. All of that came to £2,765. Now, if you're wondering, Chris, how do you manage to get material so cheaply? Well, you got 2 different types of people in this world. The people who see the price on a website, and then the people like me who call up the builder's merchant and say, "Oi mush, what's the best price you can do on this?" And then you go back and forth. You say, "Well, actually, this particular builder's merchant's given me this price. Can you match that?" And then they go, "Well, we can actually do better than that. We can do it all for this." So, yes, I did spend that amount of money on the timber, but if you were just buying it off the website, it would be more like £4,000. And that's the power of haggling. I mean, you saw it on the London project. Just by lowballing and haggling on that project, we saved £172,500 from the get-go, just by asking. So always remember, if you don't ask, you don't get. I want you all to understand everything that you're watching in this video is extremely simple and easy to do. You are measuring, you are cutting, and then you are putting screws into those pieces of timber. There's a lot of people in this world who muddy the water to make it seem deep, and you'd be amazed at what you can achieve. Seriously, like, there's still things to this day where I'm like, oh, I'm a bit nervous about doing that. I haven't got experience in that. And then your brain starts making these little excuses to you, and it keeps going, no, Chris, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then you do it. And you're going to see later on in this video, 200 kilogram sliding door. You can't move that on your own. Well, I did. And I'm recording this video still lying on the floor because I almost broke my back. Now I know what the limit of windows I can install on my own is. And by the way, before we get to that bit, I can already tell there's going to be people going, "Oh, it's stupid, you shouldn't have done it on your own." I'm with you. I called 3 people. None of them were available. And yeah, sometimes you just have to do some sketchy stuff to get stuff done. So yeah, anyway, let's move on from that. Now, this building is not square. This particular side of the garden room is not at right angles, and the reason why is the plot of the tiny home is weird. It doesn't make any sense. It used to be an old road back a few hundred years ago, and because of that, it's just the weirdest shape. So I decided, instead of making the building square, I decided to kind of follow the lines of the boundary of the plot to try and make it fit into the space a little bit better. And also what you're going to see is this garden room is also a bit of an L shape, and that's because there's a really old holly tree on the right hand side of it, and I didn't want to cut it down. Well, I did want to, but I couldn't, because the environmentalist nerd people are like, "Oh no, you can't do that, there could be a badger living in the tree or something." So I decided I'd make a feature out of the holly tree. So I'm going to be having a window facing it, which I think will look quite nice. Now, in this building, I'm going to be having 3 main windows. So there's going to be a 2.6 meter by 2 meter sliding door, and then a 1 meter 50 by 2.5 meter window facing the tiny home. And then there's the swivel window facing the holly tree, and then just a security door. It's going to be going on the left hand side. It should have cost just over 10 grand for all of the windows and doors, but instead it cost me £2,650, so a saving of 73%. And if you're wondering, Chris, how did you manage to do that? Well, you need to have a little read of newsletter number 41. And if you aren't aware, I have a weekly newsletter. Just click the link in the description or search Havesomevision on Substack and have a read. It's been a bestseller now for 11 months in a row, which is just insane. And I cannot thank everyone who reads it enough. It's ridiculous. In fact, all of this is a bit ridiculous. Like, I posted a video the other week of me explaining how much money I made from YouTube. And that video of me talking about how much money I made from YouTube made me like £400. It's so weird, this social media world. And not to tell you what to do, but at the same time, you right now have an iPhone, right? You have one. And you do things in your life You might build bird boxes or vegetable patches or I don't know, whatever. Just set up your camera and record it, because I mean, if I hadn't have done that, I would be quite a few £1,000s worse off right now. And it takes a little bit of a risk, and I appreciate it's a bit of an uncomfortable thing at first being on camera. I get it. I've done it. Every single YouTuber I know, they don't really like it. It's a bit of a struggle for almost all of them. Some of them are bizarre people who just like love it, but the majority don't. They just do it because they know that, one, there is a business behind it, and then two, they go, well, this could actually help somebody, and it could give them some inspiration to realize, oh, do you know what? I can actually build a bathroom on my own, build a tiny home. Oh, also, if you are wondering, Chris, how you've managed to get planning permission for the tiny home, just drop me a message on Instagram. About, oh my God, it's probably 2 years ago now, actually, at this point. I started to get tons of people interested in buying the information on how to build tiny homes in the UK. So I spent months writing a book, and then for the last year, I've been selling that book. And it explains everything that allowed myself and my clients to build tiny homes, gyms, workshops in areas they would never normally get planning permission. This information, it costs me thousands of pounds, but because I can sell it in quantities, I don't have to charge a ridiculous price for it. So if you are interested in buying this book, just send me a message on Instagram at Havesomevision, and I'll send it across to you. What you can see I'm doing right now is I'm adding all of the ceiling joists. And some of you might be thinking, Chris, it doesn't look like you've got all of the studs in the walls yet. And the reason for that is I ran out. So I'm going to have to go back and add these studs into the wall to make it properly strong. But it was good enough for me to get on and put all the plywood on the roof and then add the EPDM. Now, if you don't know what EPDM is, it's basically a rubber roof. And a little trick to save a ton of money is go on eBay, search EPDM end of roll clearance, and basically these roofing companies, once they've done massive projects or whatever, there's usually some EPDM left over, and they can't really sell it at normal price because it's a bit of a random size. So as long as you can find a piece of EPDM that is a little bit bigger than your particular roof, it's a way you can save a ton of money. So for this entire EPDM roof and all of the glue, it cost me only £200, which is just nothing. And it is so quick to do. The best way to install it is rolling it around a waste pipe. But because this is an L shape and the holly tree is in the way, I can't obviously unroll it normally. So it was a bit of a pain, but I managed to do it just before it got dark. And British weather is the reason this project went so quickly, is because I only had a window of about 4 days before the weather really turned and it started getting a lot darker earlier in the evening. So the time you can actually be allowed to work on a building site gets cut massively short, and working in the rain, gluing plywood and stuff, being on a roof, I just didn't want to do it. I did that on the tiny home, and if you remember what happened on that roof, I still have scars on my hand from the damage that did to my hands. So yeah, lesson learned on that one. Now, just as a warning, this next part, just don't move windows and doors like I was. It's so dumb. Really, like, I'm being serious. Don't do it. If you have to, do it, but don't do it, because, I mean, this window here weighs 100 kilograms. Well, 98 kilograms. And this was okay to move, surprisingly. It was heavy, obviously, and you're trying to deal with the fact that it's constantly wanting to fall over. And also, it's not really a window, this. It's a door as well. It's got this really cool mechanism, which I'll show in a future video. So if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 100k. I want that plaque. So just do it. But this was the bad one. This is quite a tall sliding door. Every single one of these windows is triple glazed. And I can't explain to you. To get this window into place took 45 minutes. And you can see right now how heavy it is. Like, that is full force, all my strength, and I couldn't lift it. So the way I actually managed to move it was basically 1 centimeter at a time. I'm not even joking. It was so difficult, so dumb. Every muscle in my body is just broken, and the suction cup that I'm using kept slipping, and at one point it slipped completely off and I punched myself in the stomach, and for 4 days my stomach has been like, I can't even explain it. I think I punched myself in my stomach so hard that my organs were just like, nah, we're exiting. It was really weird. But this suction cup can hold 400 pounds, and this window's only 200 kilograms, which, wait, what's the conversion of pounds to kilograms? All right, let me just Google it. So 400 pounds is 181 kilograms. Right, so that's why it wasn't working, is because, yeah. So the window was 20 kilograms over the limit of the suction cup. Now, this work that you're watching right now is super simple and standard. It's just adding OSB, adding Tyvek breathable membrane, which allows moisture out of the structure, but then doesn't allow moisture into it. And if you didn't have it on your house and water did manage to find its way in, it would rot the OSB, rot the stud walls, and in 100 years, your house would definitely fall down. So it's super important to do it. It's really easy to do. You're just stapling it on. Now, when it comes to battens, there is a little bit of a rule with this. If you're doing horizontal cladding boards, you need to have vertical battens. Whereas if you're having vertical cladding boards, you need to have vertical battens and then horizontal battens on top of it. And the reason for that is if moisture is falling down the front of the Tyvek, if you didn't have those initial vertical battens, the water would just pool up on top of the battens and sit and rot all the battens out. So it's super important you have those vertical battens initially. Now, when it comes to the cladding, I had an idea, what if I used decking as the cladding material? Because, well, cedar cladding is stupidly expensive. I think it was £2,100 for the entire tiny home. Whereas if you buy decking, which is way thicker, it's treated, it will last forever, it only cost me £350 because you can haggle so easily on it because most builders merchants are keeping so much of it in stock. And I wasn't exactly sure if I should leave it just the normal timber color, but I decided on matching it to the burnt cedar look of the tiny home, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. Now, this garden room video is going to be in 2 parts. So this is part 1, and part 2, which I'll be uploading soon, is going to be all the internal works, the plasterboarding, the flooring, and then it's going to be creating my dream office setup. And I've got a lot of plans for that. So if it's not too much to ask, please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and keep an eye out for part 2 of the garden room build. Sweet. In a bit.